Hey, welcome to Between the Years Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Pelletier, mental performance coach. Here we're bringing on coaches, players, scouts, baseball people to talk baseball. Their views and experience in recruiting, player development, and mental performance. If you're playing pro ball, college, high school, or just a parent trying to manage the matrix of travel ball, this podcast is for you. Here we go. Episode 8, Connor Gandossy. Connor is the current, actually just brand new hire at University of Minnesota. He's recruiting coordinator, hitting and catching coach. Connor spent 7 seasons at Creighton University. Before that was at St. Louis University as an assistant. And before that was a catcher, a player at St. Louis University. So here we go. Welcome, Connor.
Okay.
What's up? What's going on? Thanks for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, man. I actually just got back from Minneapolis like 45 minutes ago, so I'm fresh in the door right now. So glad to hop on with you.
So lots going on.
There's a lot going on. It's not a slow time.
You know, it's funny because man, the first time I reached out to you, I remember where I was too. I was on a hike. I was hiking up a mountain because I was just coming off knee surgery, and it was how I was rehabbing was walking up hills, and I was trying to get some recruiting done.
Mm-hmm.
I was on Twitter, and I reached out to you, and boom, you reached back right away. And then I haven't been with that team in quite a while, and I started doing this podcast. And I was going through messages, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if Connor will come on, and then. You know, I saw your profile picture and there was a big M on there. I was like, all right. I don't know what that means. Maybe he went there or something, you know, I don't know.
Right.
And then sure enough, man, like 6 hours later, you announced. What did you announce?
I am the new recruiting coordinator and hitting coach up at the University of Minnesota up in Minneapolis. So
cool. Congrats.
Now officially in the Big Ten. So
sweet. Power 5,
yeah.
Baby. Power 5.
Power 5. Yeah.
Power
I guess
5.
it's Power 4 now with Pac-12 gone. But yeah. Power 4. That's funny to say. But
it is. Huge move. You obviously very excited.
Very excited. Yeah. I've done a lot of recruiting up there just at my time at Creighton and then my time at St. Louis University. So I've done my fair share of Minnesota recruiting. I got to say, like, I went to a showcase yesterday, and actually having the state school across your chest was pretty awesome. That was the first time I've ever had that in my career. Yeah. So I'm really excited. I think the history of the program is unbelievable. The tradition, and then, you know, what Ty is going to do from a head coaching standpoint is pretty special. I think the other unique thing about it is, I think without knowing the facts, I would just take a guess. We are the youngest Power 4 coaching staff in the country, which I think is a really cool dynamic. You know, it's I'm actually the oldest.
Is Slosh stealing your thunder right now, dude?
A little bit. Yeah, that's it's quite a power move by Texas, but you know, I get it. I mean, well, I do, but I don't. But
kind of broke the internet last 24 hours with it.
Yeah, there were some rumors floating around for the last couple of weeks or so, but you know, at the end of the day, it's hard to turn away a lot of money. That's just the world we're living in.
Absolutely. It's so Minnesota. So you're up there recruiting. I mean, shoot, you didn't waste any time. You know, were you know getting right after it. When you're recruiting now for Minnesota, are you looking around the area more than anything?
Yeah, that's something. Even when I came to Creighton, I really wanted, and again, you're not the state school, but I wanted to keep the best kids in state, specifically at the university I was at. And then with Minnesota, I think there's so much talent in the state alone. And then Wisconsin being the neighboring state, and the Badgers don't have baseball, you know, the next closest state would be Minnesota. So we do have that combination where you can recruit Minnesota and Wisconsin as 2 home bases, which is really unique and really special. But my job and mission and goal is to keep the best kids in the state of Minnesota. So that's what I want to do. Obviously, if you have to be creative, you know, I get that. And I would say, like, the other thing, though, is like if they do leave the state, we've built a good rapport with them that if they hop back in the transfer portal, we're their first phone call. That's also a big plus for us.
So I get that. I understand. It is nice to have homegrown talent. It's a culture, it's a vibe, it's a buzz. Everybody, you grow up in the area. You kind of want to go to those schools.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously gives you guys a little bit more flexibility in your budget having in-state guys too. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
In-state tuition to out-of-state tuition is a different
Oh,
different dynamic.
I'm from Canada. Talk about out of country tuition. It's
Well, we actually have a reciprocity with what's that territory up in Winnipeg?
Manitoba.
Manitoba. Yeah, I didn't want to butcher it. Manitoba. Yeah, we do have reciprocity with Manitoba. So
Okay.
I actually looked today if I wanted to make a little trek up to Winnipeg. It's only 7 hours, so
Yeah.
perhaps I get up there. I do love Canada. I am a big fan of the country. So.
But what about like, have you, been at Creighton, and other places, have you seen many Canadians coming through?
Yeah, we had
I know there's a
Jackson.
kid from here, Victoria, BC, Carson Vitale. He went to Creighton.
He went to Creighton. Yeah,
He's on
yeah.
staff.
Carson's with the,
He's on staff with the Seattle Mariners now.
yeah, with the Mariners. We had Jack Penow this year from Thunder Bay. He was a Canadian national kid up at Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
And my time in St. Louis, we had Jackson Wark. He was
Okay.
from Alberta.
Okay.
And he was also a Canadian national kid. And then we also had Marco de Roma. He was actually in my wedding. It's still a blast from the past. I played with him at St. Louis. And so he was a Ontario kid.
Okay.
So he was in Ontario. He's an OBJ kid back in the day when they took the
OBJ.
college tours. Yeah.
Well, they still do, man. They still do.
They still do.
That's right. Look at the Naylor boys coming out of there. They're doing a good job. I got a good buddy who's running that program. He's from BC. Corey Eckstein. I don't know if you know Corey at all.
Yeah.
So he's doing a great job over there. With that being said, what was I going to say? I was going to ask you about Canadians. Is it pretty much just national team guys? Like, how are you? There's Canadians that are listening to this. I'm Canadian. My following's a little bit more Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
I created this for Canadians, more or less. Honestly, Connor, I work in mental performance. I talk to kids nonstop. Talk about process, talking about goals, 13, 14 years old. Hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And the answer is always, I want to go to Vandy. I want to go to LSU. I want to go to USC. I want to go to this school. I want to go to, everybody's going to want to go to Tennessee now, right? From here.
Right.
But what is realistic and how do they get there in a sense? And that's kind of, I'm only one person to tell them, hey, yeah, that's a great goal. It might be an interesting journey. You might have to go junior college. You might have to go here. You might have to go there. You need to take what you can get. But for, now you're in, Power 5 or Power 4. If you were to recruit a national or a Canadian, it'd probably have to be a national team guy. Yeah.
Not always. I think there's a variety of different ways. I mean, Canada is such a big country to begin with. I mean, you can go to the west side of the state, or west side of the country, middle part of the country, or you go to, the Ontario part of the country. And what I would say is, I think as long as you're a good player, we're going to find you. There's no secrets anymore. And I think it's a good thing and the bad thing about social media is because you could hide some kids out back in the day, like when I first started. And now that people, you got PBR so active up there now. A lot of the Canadian teams are coming down to play in perfect game or PBR tournaments. So we have an opportunity to see them. So it doesn't just have to be a national team kid. Now, obviously that helps because it's no different than being selected for like the futures games in PBR or, a national team here in the States. But I think as long as you've put together a good product, you have good video, you have people like yourself or other people inside of the Canadian Baseball Society, neighborhood, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the inner workings. I think as long as you have those people helping you, I think we're going to come find you. And I know my goal this year is actually to go up to the, is it still the Rogers Center? Is that still what they're calling it up in Toronto?
Yeah. So you're going to go up to that. You go up to that. It's not called T12 anymore. I can't remember what it's called, but
it used to be T12, right?
Yeah,
so my goal is to actually go see kids there, just because I feel like we can get kids, over to Minnesota and play in the Big Ten. So,
Yeah.
and then the other side is definitely junior college. I think you see it more with junior college. I think the real upper echelon, the top 5, 6, 7 kids in Canada are probably going SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Big 12. But if you have a kid that maybe is looking to go mid-major, or perhaps he's going low major, or perhaps he wants to go D2, even D3, like there's a variety of different ways to get, in here. I think everybody, of course, wants to go play at the bigger school. I get that. But I think with the transfer portal now, there's so many different opportunities where if you do go put up numbers and you do want to transfer and you've earned that right, then you could go transfer to a bigger school. So,
how many A&M guys? How many A&M guys are in there right now?
the last time I looked, I think it's like 9 or 10, and it's all the dudes.
It is. It's wild, man. I was just reading about that. I was just looking on social media. I was just reading that, and
the portal's crazy.
I was talking to a buddy up here, Ian Sanderson. He's at Tacoma Community College, and he went and looked at it. It was a couple weeks ago. And there's 4,200 players in there.
I think it's close to 5,000 now. I mean, it's
and it's like he said. He's like, the math is not adding up here.
No, there's, and that's part of it. Like there's a rat race to get those highly ranked guys. And then there's a lot of really good players that are not going to have a home. So if you're patient and you're diligent and you're meticulous on how you're going about it, you're going to land some unbelievable kids in the middle of July.
So portal started, what was it, portal 2022?
I think it was 2020, actually. It was during COVID.
During COVID, okay. But there wasn't a lot going on 2020, 2020. So 2022, I was the GM in a summer ball team in the West Coast League. And I remember, like, that's the first time we got on field after COVID up here in Canada. I think you guys started a year earlier. But how important is it now? Or is this a thing where you're seeing guys in the portal, you're going, okay, he's playing summer ball here. I want to go have a look at him playing summer ball. Is that a thing?
That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a 5 hours.
Which is super cool for summer ball because guys aren't just having summer break anymore. They're free agents. They're banging.
Yeah. No, it's definitely free agent market in summer ball. I think, so I was driving back. It's about a 5-hour drive, Minneapolis to Omaha. And I was on the phone with a guy and I said, where are you at? And he's like, I'm finally back on campus. I'm not going to mention his name. He's like, I'm back on campus. I just made my college summer run. And I think he hit up like 3 or 4 different summer leagues over the span of a week and a half, 2 weeks. And basically you just kind of get together your targets and you try to map it out. There are some cool spots along the way. And then there's some spots where it's going to be a little bit more hard to navigate and get through. Like the Appy League is not easy to go.
No, it's like the West Coast League is massive. It's huge. It's impossible to follow and scout, right?
So there are some easier ways that you can kind of navigate it. The Northwoods, you can kind of make that run through Wisconsin and then hit a bunch of teams up there. The Coastal Plains League is fairly easy if you map it out correctly. The West Coast League would be fun for the places that you're going to, but it would not be easy to navigate. So I think there's definitely that aspect.
It's a real bad bus league, dude.
I can imagine.
Yeah. What about the Cape? You guys, you getting over there? You looking at guys? I got Sheets coming on the podcast, so he's going to be. Yeah.
Sheets. I don't know who is Sheets doing his own PR because I mean he's on my Twitter more than anybody I've ever seen.
He's awesome, dude, man. Like he's hilarious. I mean, I think being with doing that ABCA podcast, helped for a long time. That's how I really found out who he was back in the day, and then I just got in touch like I did you, and baseball being what it is, guys just are like, hey, how you doing? Cool, man. All right, cool, let's chat.
Yeah, I haven't gotten up there yet to go scout players. Obviously, I grew up in that neck of the woods, so I understand what the Cape's all about. I'd love to get up there because I'm a big lobster roll guy. So believe me, I'd love to get up there. But we have a couple guys up there right now. One of them just got back from Minnesota. Another one just went out. So we do have some guys up there.
You getting some time off? You getting some time off at all? Like I know the grind is real, but
no.
Christmas, you looking?
I got a couple days with my wife's family, and we're gonna go down to like Pensacola area for a couple days, and then I got to hop up to the Futures games. I'm back in Minneapolis for like 2 or 3 days for for visits. And then I'm actually flying down to Cary. I'm doing the 13, 14 PDP stuff down there for 5 days, which I'm super, super pumped about for Team USA.
Cool.
Speaking of national stuff, it's something that I've
Sweet.
always wanted to do. So
Yep.
I got picked this year to do 13 and 14, which I think is a
Congrats,
really
man.
cool age.
It's such a neat thing to wear, to wear that logo, for me with that, the jersey hanging behind me.
Yep.
It's such a cool thing, to be. It doesn't matter the age group, you're part of the system, you're part of it. And so 13, 14, that kind of leads me to a question here for you is when I know that new rule kicked in where colleges can't talk to kids
Right.
until they're in their junior year, August 1st or whatever the rule is. When are you guys looking at guys? Like when you start to follow guys, especially up here with lack of knowledge, should middle school kids be like, okay, I gotta get my velo up. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Or should they, tell me a little bit about that.
No, go be a kid as long as you could possibly be a kid.
Sweet.
I think the rule is awesome. I think it was an
Yeah.
absolute train wreck having to make
Yeah.
decisions on freshmen. Some guys were doing it in 8th grade, committing kids in 8th grade, which I think is absurd.
I was curious to know if some of it was even real or if some kids were just throwing up commitment, hey, praise God, I'm signed to TCU, and TCU's like, I've never heard of that kid.
No, it's real. I mean, like there were 8th graders committed. I mean, they're still committed, but
Was there a grandfather? Was there a grandfather clause into that?
yeah, there was grandfather. Like if you were now, I don't think you can talk to the coaches,
Okay.
but I think it was grandfathered in where, and obviously they can talk to your
So
summer coach.
with the pace of with the climate in college baseball, those coaches could have 2 new jobs by the time that kid's even eligible.
That's the thing. And here's what I always told the coaches that were doing it. It's why is it that Major League Baseball's pouring millions and millions of dollars to figure out if they have a high school kid or even a college kid, if he's going to be a professional baseball player, but you're smart enough to figure out if the 8th grader is going to be good by the time he goes through high school and gets to you on college campus. We don't have millions and millions of dollars of advanced scouting.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I never really understood it. I get why they did it. You got to keep up with everybody else. That's the old time saying, right? But I think like middle school, go be a kid, right? Just enjoy being like making sure that you love the game first and foremost. And then when you go through high school, enjoy being a high school kid. Like high school's awesome. You should really, really enjoy being a high school kid. And obviously, have a timeline and a plan of how you want to get better with the things that you want to get better at. To answer your question, I would probably say like we start figuring out names, at least the way I like to do it is by sophomore year. Just knowing who's good in the area, who's good in the surrounding states, keeping them on a list. If you run into him, great. If you're going to watch a junior and he's on, the kid's high school team, writing some notes about him. But
that's in state.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go out and watch freshmen and sophomores right now in a tournament. I just don't see the point of it. We can't talk to them. So I can get as much info as possible on them, but a lot can change. And then at the same time, like I'm basically doing advanced scouting, basically seeing if the kid's going to be good or not in 2 years to talk to him, not even to get him to commit, just to talk to him.
Are you following Perfect Game PBR for those analytics, for those numbers, just to keep checks on guys?
Yeah, I mean, we use both. Obviously PBR has the blast motion stuff, and they use TrackMan as well. I think Perfect Game maybe still does TrackMan. I'm not sure. But we try to get info on that. Yeah, I don't put a whole lot of stock into the rankings, to be honest with you. I never really have. I don't care if you're the 50th ranked player in the state or if you're the first ranked player in the state. I think really just you need to trust your eyes and your staff's eyes and making sure that, everybody's in agreement on whether or not the kid can play for you.
Well, I'm always curious about the PBR and Perfect Game thing because, there's constantly events and, for kids, they kind of feel like they have to be at them because everybody's going to them and this and that. And my advice to kids is, do one once a year because your numbers aren't going to change that much in 3 months. And that's kind of what they're for, right? It's a numbers, it's a database. And in 3 months as a sophomore, I don't think you're going to get a velo jump worth looking at.
Right. Now, I think if you are, if you go to that first one and you do really well, and you feel like you've made a jump in your own training
Yep.
and you want to go back, I think PBR and Perfect Game do a tremendous job at promoting kids.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel like in your own, don't just go on a whim. Don't just be like, oh, I've gone to one. I see Curtis, my boy's going to another one. I'm going to go with him.
I feel like
There's
I need
no
to
reason.
be there if I'm going to go to college. That's,
Yeah, I don't think you need to. I think if you've done one and you've done well at it,
Mm-hmm.
great. If you feel like you've made that big jump, I mean, again, it could be a month, could be 2, could be 6, could be a year, whatever it may be. I think once you're in the system, you're good. Once you made a jump, go again, refresh those numbers because they do a really good job of, promoting you. I don't think it's necessary to go to 7 of them. I don't see the point of that.
Yeah. No, it's, it's just, it's becoming more and more and more. And I think social media has a lot to do with that. The kind of social currency of it all, of being here, being there, being seen. Got to post a picture from this one. Got to post a picture from this one. Keep up, make sure my oven mitt's in my back pocket when I'm playing shortstop,
No
fun
doubt.
stuff.
Everybody's got an oven mitt.
Man, it's like just leave it in the dugout. Like, okay, cool. It's fine. Big leaguers wear them when they're on base, but, you don't need to, especially, catchers have them in the back pocket. I'm like, you got enough gear on, bro. You got enough gear on.
The new thing now is the catchers have the towel in their back pocket. Is that reached up to Canada yet?
I haven't seen it. I'm sure it will. Well, I saw the second baseman for Tennessee had a towel in his back pocket.
Yeah. He's a good player though. He can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants. Absolutely, hit for the cycle in the series. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
What was I going to say? Okay, so. And this, it's always great getting input and your thoughts on these things. I have some clients. I have some young clients. I have a 12-year-old client in North Carolina. He's a great little player. But let me tell you, the amount of baseball these kids are playing is bananas. The travel ball, the guest playing, the tournaments, the East Cobb he was just in Omaha for a tournament, and then he was in Atlanta, and then he's in another one, and it's great and it's fun. What are your thoughts? Where do we draw the line on this kind of stuff for 12-year-olds?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you just played Little League and then it was like, all right, it's football season now.
We did do, I think we probably, I'm trying to remember, back when I was 12, we probably did like 1 or 2 out of state tournaments. Like I think everybody hit up like Myrtle Beach, right. That was a big one.
It's more big for the parents too, because they want a little vacation.
No doubt. And then the other one would probably be Orlando down at like the Worldwide of Sports. I don't even know if they still have those fields down there now. But like those were the 2 big ones we would always go to, being from Connecticut.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need to play 60 games at 12 years old. I don't really see the point of it. I think when they get to high school, I think you definitely need to play games, but you better be getting in that weight room too. And I think that's a big thing. Like I think kids train year round. They're in the weight room. And then all of a sudden when summer ball hits, I feel like a lot of these guys stop working out because they're traveling so much.
Yep.
And you can start seeing their body deteriorate by the end of the summer. And like my advice is you need to have a balance. I think you need to be willing to say no to some people. It might piss some of those coaches off. I think you could probably, which big tournaments are good and which ones are not. And I'm not saying have commitment issues to the team, but like, I don't think it's necessary to play that many games. So I don't think it's necessary to go to a tournament in right at the deadline in August. When we're about to stop recruiting, you're not going to have a lot of college coaches there. They're burnt out. They're coming back from area codes.
Especially at 12.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, 12. Yeah, 12's a different animal, man. And here's what I'll say. And here's what I think I've kind of seen in my career here. Parents and families are pouring so much money into this that they expect when it's time for their kid to go to college, it's all going to be free. Now, if you're really good, you're going to have that, right? But like, let's not talk about the 1% here. Let's talk about the overall population. If you're spending your family's savings to go travel to all these tournaments since the start of 12 years old, we only have 11.7. Now, I know there's some things down the pipeline about scholarship, restrictions being gone and schools are going to be willing to invest as much as they want. But I don't think at this point, like you can't take that gamble where you've just blown your whole family savings because you need to go to every tournament and you need to stay in this hotel and you need to do this, you need to do that. I mean, it just adds up. It's not basketball and football where everybody's on a full ride.
Yeah. So there's something down the pipeline? There's chatter.
There's chatter that at least in the bigger conferences they're gonna do away with scholarship limitations and
So they can just
basically
use football money.
yeah. I mean, well, the players are going to get paid now with that new lawsuit that came out with the revenue sharing and the
Mm-hmm.
21 or 22 million, whatever it is. It's above my pay grade. Honestly, and having only been a part of the Big Ten for 2 weeks, I'm just trying to recruit, and
Yeah,
I'm
come
trying to
on,
keep
man.
my head
Lock in.
down.
Let's go. We need everything here. Come on.
I'm not privy to those conversations, nor do I want to be. It's out of my pay rate, and I just want to find good players to help us win. So when
Cool.
they tell me that the rules change, I will go ahead and be a little bit more inclined to them. But for right now, I'm going by what we always have.
So you're heading to Minnesota. You're at Creighton. You had your systems at Creighton. You had everything you use there. In the cages, tech, etc. What are you excited about in Minnesota? Like as a hitting coach, what are you? I know I've been a hitting coach for a long time, and when I get a little bit of budget to go do stuff, it's like, okay, cool, we can get this, and we can get this, and this might help. What are you excited about with Minnesota?
So I was in the
In the hitting
cages the
coach?
other day. Yeah, just like tech wise, you're talking,
Just
or just
anything you're really excited about, but more on the I get to work with hitters because of this now.
yeah. I met a couple guys on campus. They were walking out of the weight room. I think just the sheer, and we had a big physical group this year at Creighton, but just the physicality of these kids, they're huge.
Yeah,
Some of the guys that we have walking around the team are really big. So I'm excited that bigger conference, you kind of are drawn to some bigger kids, some more physical, athletic kids are more drawn to the bigger conferences, just as an overall. So I'm excited about that. From a tech standpoint, I was walking around the cages and they have like 3 or 4 e-hacks,
oh well,
which I'm excited about. So like every cage has one, which is awesome.
yeah,
At Creighton, we had an iPitch, which if you're not
yeah,
familiar with the iPitch, it's owned by Spinball, and basically you walk around with an iPad and it'll throw
yeah.
whatever pitch you want. Maybe down the road we get that, but I'm excited that I can put them through, different hitting progressions. It's like, hey, we're going to go fastball slider here. This one's going to be, fastball slider, fastball slider, and just put different sequences in there. So I'm excited about that.
I used to have an iHack, and what I struggled with was the noise, the change of noise of machine. When you're trying to sequence things. So I actually invested in earplugs and would crank music up.
I like that. I like
And it
that.
was actually, what, the guys really liked hitting with earplugs in.
Really?
It was a wild concept. They were like, I actually like this. It helps me focus.
I'm gonna have to get some earplugs now. Then I
Try it.
usually just have the music bumping, so
Yeah, yeah,
like you can't hear anything. And what
yeah.
I'll have them do is if it's a random round, because you can kind of see the machine
You can
move.
see the wheel a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah. So what I have them do is I have them put their head down and go
cool.
through their pre at bat routine or pitch by pitch routine.
Mm-hmm.
That way they're not looking at the machine.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd be peeking. I'd be cheating my ass off too.
hey man, it's gonna show up when we go against the dude on Friday night. Then that's the
I
problem.
know, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, man, I gotta get an edge here. How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do it?
No, I get that. I get
Yeah.
that. I think the other thing too is just like how much advanced analytics through True Media and stuff like that. And I think the whole staff is very data driven, which is
Yeah.
awesome. And I've learned a lot already just talking to those guys about advanced sabermetrics and things like that. It has filtered into college. So I've definitely I shouldn't say I have. I've slowly broadened my horizon on
It's a
sabermetrics and
it,
advanced.
it's a big workflow transfer. When you're going to a new place and you have new people and you're trying to, implement new systems or things you're comfortable with, it's tough. It's a challenge to get that workflow going again. Do you guys use Synergy at all for your advanced?
Yeah. So we have
Yeah.
Synergy, we use True Media, and then TrackMan. So we have
Yeah.
2 portable TrackMans, and then we have the stadium unit as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I used to love Synergy on the road in the West Coast League because I was able to work out a deal with Synergy where we were filming every game. So, we were going through through pick moves. We were going through everything. We were going through sequencing. Had a TV in the clubhouse. I was running through starting pitchers. It was massive. But at the same
Synergy is
time,
unbelievable.
it's so much work.
It's a lot of work. I think Synergy's got, yeah. I think
Like
Synergy's gotten better.
setting up those cameras for every game. I remember it was just like,
Well, yeah, you're
wow,
doing that. Yeah. The
manual,
camera, yeah,
manual.
that's a grind. We
Mm-hmm.
used to have to do that. Now, obviously, when we were at Schwab, they have cameras all over the ballpark. And now, up in Minnesota, they have cameras. But when we were on the road early on at Creighton, we had to set up cameras because we were one of the first schools in the league to have Synergy. And so we had to set up our own cameras. And now a lot of the schools kind of have those cameras, either in center field or, down third base or first base lines.
What's that like playing at Schwab every day?
Man, I'll tell you what, I think a lot of people give it a bad name. I love it. They give it a bad name just because it's not a hitter's paradise. I think if you want to play pro ball, you have to learn how to hit in that ballpark. I think if you go look around Major League Baseball, some of these, Tony might kill me for this, but nobody's playing at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. That ball's flying out of there at Tennessee. Now they made the ballpark up here look very small too. Christian Moore went out dead center field on a line, which was stupid. But I think it's as close to professional baseball in terms of a setting that you're going to get with the stadium. And for me, having been there for 7 years, I got chills every time I walked into that ballpark. It never really got old for me, just because of what it meant to play in that ballpark, and what we do at the end of the year, like hosting the College World Series. It was unbelievable. So I'll always be grateful for my time there.
It must be, and it's just so nice because it's the spot that you're prepping for, everybody's prepping for. So they're keeping that thing manicured.
You weren't allowed to touch the field. So the only thing that maybe you would do is like you'd have the players pull the tarp and help the ground screw guys out. But you were not allowed to, I remember when I played at St. Louis, I'd catch a doubleheader and I was on my hands and knees doing the clay at home plate. And then I'd walk out to the mound because the pitchers always grab the tamp first. And I'd walk back and I'd tamp home plate in the batter's box. And so you walk off the field at Schwab and they got all the equipment coming out on the warning track and there's 12 guys out there helping out. And they're there for another couple of hours, making sure that field is in pristine shape. So the grounds crew people were unbelievable. And the field is in really pristine shape. And just, I don't know how many colleges have security guards sitting outside their locker room while the game's going on. I mean, that's big league. Obviously you've been in a big league ballpark, you understand what that's like. And that's what they have there.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's super cool. That's going to be something you miss, I bet. Absolutely. But let me ask you this though, because I played at the Rogers Center when I was on the national team, and it was before a Jays game. It was cool, but they were like vacuuming the stands, and there was like 9 people there. It's kind of like, kids is cool, but where's everyone at?
There's definitely that vibe. Like you would have 3,000 people, and it felt like you got 12.
Totally.
And what I was going to say is walking around Minnesota's field, you get 3,000 people in that stadium. That's going to feel like 30,000.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so what they also have is behind the third base dugout is like an apartment building that you can do Airbnb in. So all the fans go up there as well for weekend games, which is pretty sweet. So I'm actually looking forward to getting on an on-campus field, which I'm excited about. So I am going to miss Schwab. I'll be there in May, though, when we're in the Big Ten tournament, which is great. But I think having the on-campus field is going to be a nice change to walk out of your office. It's your field. It's going to be
there. There's a vibe of the student presence. Everything's going on. You're right. It's big time. It's kind of like watching College game day, on a Saturday morning. Yeah. That's that vibe. It's cool. Okay, we're going to wrap it up here in a little bit, but one more thing I want to touch on, what I like to talk about is recruiting, development, and the last part is mental performance, the mental side of the game. And, I want to ask, in Division I baseball, what's going on the mental side of baseball? What are teams doing? What are players doing? Obviously mental health is talked about a lot more, but the performance side of things, we're training our bodies, but are we training our minds as well? Where were you guys at Creighton? What's the game plan at Minnesota? What's going on, around Division I baseball?
Yeah, I haven't dove into it yet with our staff at Minnesota. So that's definitely a
Okay.
topic that is on kind of our checklist of what we want to do in that aspect. And Ty might have something figured out with that, which, great if he does. We used Brian Kite this past year at Creighton,
Mhm.
and BK was awesome. He does a great job of breaking the mental stuff down. Probably like the SEC schools are bringing those guys in, like yourself or BK and people like that. They're bringing them in monthly,
Mhm.
and flying them in. We did it through Zoom.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I couldn't
trained
agree.
I trained under Brian Kane.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We
right.
we
So,
used
he's working with LSU. He was all over A&M, right? They were using that Jocko Good hat, right?
yeah.
That's Kane to a T right there.
We had Kane a couple years back. It was not like fully in depth with what he did, but he hopped on a Zoom with the guys. I
Cool.
think maybe once back in 21,
Yeah.
or 20, one of the 2 years.
Mhm.
I think you hit the nail on the head though. Like we're training so much with our bodies and our skill set, and probably the thing that's forgotten is the mind.
Yeah.
And obviously the overall well-being of the mind is important, but I think when the game starts, you have to be able to be in a good headspace, and then be able to deal with failure, and just understand, where you are, presently where your feet are. And so that's a big part of what we talked about this past year. I think it really helped, because I think sometimes, like, what happens with, you're playing so many games in college, it's not like football where you're playing one game a week and you,
Yeah.
you have more time to talk about it. You're playing so many games. Sometimes you're playing 5 games a week. Sometimes you're playing 6 games a week. So you're playing a lot of games. Sometimes all that stuff can just get thrown out the window if you don't talk about it.
Oh, it's got to be it's got to be a foundation. There has to be a
Gotta be.
foundation of it, and I love seeing clips of Kentucky, with the players swing and miss, they bang on their chest. They look at the dugout, and everybody in the dugout's banging on their chest. It's like they just, okay, we're dropping an anchor here, we're resetting. The boys are fired up for me. That swing and miss is gone. Let's go.
Yeah.
And things like that, and that's what I'm excited to hear about and see and learn who's doing what and be able to share that information because for me I started a new program called called Mindset U, and it's actually geared towards parents and parent coaches. It's for the way lower levels, and it's geared towards, okay, your kid just struck out to end the game. You're in the car. What's the conversation? How are we
Yeah.
doing this? How are we doing this? What are we learning? Or are we leaving all that valuable knowledge at the field? How are we dealing with emotions here? Because that is where the foundation starts. And if you can build that strong at 12, 13, 14 years old, I mean, shoot, you're going to be a mental soldier when you're in college. So,
No doubt.
but it's hard if parents don't know. You see a lot of parents going, "Hey, why didn't you run harder?" Or, "Oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter." Like both of those are right and both of those are wrong. But how do we convey that message for a kid who is emotionally and mentally unstable at the best of times and learn from that? So that's my new project. It's a big one, and
That's a grind. I
it's a
think the
grind,
biggest
but
thing.
yeah, I mean, just it's the parent side for me. It's the environment. It's and this with recruiting. It's like, man, I got to meet your folks. I got to see where you're coming from here too.
We've written kids off because of their parents,
100%.
just how their parents act at games and things like that. I
Hmm.
think so many parents want to be friends with their kids. You got
Hmm.
to have boundaries.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is making sure that you have boundaries. I think the biggest thing that we talked about with our guys this year, and I think it's probably even bigger at 12 and 13, like we were talking about, than college, is that one game does not define who you are as a person. And
No.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we associate ourselves with our performance, and
Yeah.
whether it's a good game or a bad game. And that game is not going to define you. If you have a bad weekend, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means you didn't perform. And that's okay. That happens, right? But I think we oftentimes just associate our play with that.
Yep.
The other thing that we talked about, you talked about Kentucky banging on their chest. Even before that, we talk about 10 seconds of clarity and making sure that you understand that you're capable of doing it. You've done it before, and that you understand the plan and you go execute it at a high level. And that 10 seconds of clarity starts when you're on deck and you're walking to the plate, at least for a hitting standpoint. Pitching is obviously, it happens a little bit quicker just because you're out on the mound alone. You have a little bit more time of preparation for a hitting standpoint, but 10 seconds of clarity. And I think too many times hitters have all this stuff wrapped up in their head, mechanics, what they're trying to do with their swing and what the guy's trying to do on the mound. Just understand that you've done it before, you're capable of doing it again, and you understand what we're trying to do from an approach standpoint. Now go execute it. And so we call that 10 seconds of clarity. And that's something that really put the guys in a good space.
I like that.
And so that was big time. Definitely a big part, because you just see so many times. How many games do you watch in baseball? You see so many guys just caught in between. They're caught in between on whether they want to swing, they want to, whether they take, whatever it may be. It's just so much going on up here that you have to be able to simplify as much as possible.
I had a good chat. My college roommate, he's a bench coach for Round Rock Express, and he played in the minor leagues 14 years, and he talks about being the rabbit or the tiger in the batter's box. He talks about being the hunter or the hunted in the batter's box, and those kinds of terms just resonate with me as someone who was a hitter. And I can see it. I can see it. I was actually just watching film. I have a client from New York who's in Georgia right now, and the mom's sending me videos of the at bats, and I'm just watching. I'm like, I can already tell by your load that you're not there. You're not there.
Yep.
You're not there. So it's 10 seconds of clarity. That's cool. I used to use. We used to do a little 10-minute pre-practice and pre-game prep where we get the team together and we go through a visualization. We go through a little bit of a mantra. We go through a little bit of a breathing. And because, man, I don't know if my shortstop's girlfriend just broke up with him, or, my catcher's parents were yelling at him on the phone about, something that happened at home. I don't know what I'm getting with my players sometimes. And I needed to be in control of that. Not in control. I needed to be aware of my surroundings and my environment and have some say over the mindset that needs to come into practice. So I wouldn't just allow guys to come in and practice. It's like, all right, let's get prepped here. And last thing I want to talk about, Connor, is with that, I called that intent. It's a big word now, intent. Something I talk to the kids about who are playing catch, high school, they're warming up before a game and I'm watching them and I go, based on how you warmed up, you better go out and hit like 3 doubles. If you want a shot, because first of all, I know you and I'm watching you. So you have that benefit. If I don't know you, I'm not noticing you based on what you're not doing. If you're a high school kid and you're an infielder, you're playing catch and, you're working on hands, you're moving your feet, you're getting set, you're taking a couple shuffles, you're putting the ball on the ground, you're incorporating some things into your warm-ups. Now, how important is that intent in Division I baseball in everything you do?
I mean, it makes it or breaks it.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it. I remember, you'll get a kick out of this, speaking of parents. So my dad used to coach us, like our basketball team growing up, our town team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably, not to pat myself on the back, I didn't end up becoming an unbelievable basketball player. I was really good up until about high school, and then I stopped growing. So I stopped at about 6 foot. And there's not a lot of 6 foot white guys in the NBA last time I looked. So
just that Canadian guy.
So I walked into the gym one time. I was probably 13 years old. I walked in with like headphones, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "You're starting on the bench." I looked at him and I was like, "I'm averaging a double-double. What are you talking about?" And he's like, he goes, "I don't like the way that you walked into the gym. You're not ready to play. Your intent is different than what it's been on a different day." That's a true story. We joke about it to this day. And I was like, "Yeah, we were down 10 and then you had to sub me in." So I now that I'm older, I'm a little bit more of a wise guy. But the intent is huge. It's everything. I tell our guys all the time, we're going to take quality over quantity. So I want less swings with more intensity and more conviction and more focus than just sitting in there and taking 150 to 200 swings and 75 to 100 of them stuck. I don't want that. We're wasting time. Everything that we do has a reason behind what we're doing. And that has to filter down to your daily routine as well. That's the way that you stretch. That's the way that you even put your uniform on. That's just your daily habits of how you take care of yourself as a person. So if you have a new game,
that's how you load up your bag for class. That's how you get your meal prep for the morning. That's how you get ready for bed and prep all your clothes for the next day. It's all of that. Absolutely.
It's everything. And I think it's that holistic approach that you have to look at. But intent is a really big deal. If you are, and here's the big thing that a lot of young guys do, their intent will be different when people are watching them.
For sure.
And your intent has to be the same way the entire time. Whether there's 50 scouts in the stands or just the parents in the stands or just your grandfather in the stands, it doesn't matter who's there. You go about your business the same way. But it's not just on the field, though, Curtis. Like, this goes for the weight room. This goes for the classroom. You cannot skip corners in those aspects and expect to perform on the field. There's very few guys, if any guys, that can handle that or have the ability to do it. So the intent behind it is huge. It's everything.
How you do anything is how you do everything, right?
100%. And I think the biggest thing is just making sure, and some people don't know how to do that, and that's fine. Ask for help. Develop your own routine. But I think routines are so important because they help you relax and they also help you accomplish things. And I think if you're just throwing stuff against the wall, some days it's going to be really good, man. And some days it's just going to be absolutely awful. So I think it's huge. I think it's a really big deal. You see it all the time. Like, I'm going to Atlanta in a week and a half. You're going to see kids roll in. It's like, you stayed up in the hotel lobby till about 1 a.m. hanging around with your buddies. And then you look at the other kid, and it's like, that kid went to bed at a good time. He woke up, he had a good breakfast. He's ready to go. It doesn't mean that he's going to perform well, but I know that kid's going to be able to handle college when mom and dad aren't there. So I think that's the thing. Like, while some people are like, oh, just make sure that, and I said it at the beginning, like, make sure you're being a kid. There's no doubt about it, but just make sure that you're also handling your business and how you go about your business.
Yeah. Things seem to be getting a little bit more real, a little bit earlier in everybody's life. Everybody has these expectations of themselves. So that's a great, I think a great way to end it, in a sense of, be a kid, but take care of your business. You're not getting signed anytime soon. You're not committing anytime soon, but how you're doing everything right now will potentially get you to that goal. So don't stop.
100%. I couldn't have said any better than myself.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, hey, Connor, thanks again for coming on, man. I know, like you said, you just got in, and I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to hit stop on this thing, but I just need you to just stay on for a couple seconds just while it uploads.
No worries.
Okay. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Yep.